Good morning, students. In the last class we have started animal tissues, and wherein we have discussed about epithelial tissue. Epi means above, thelium means layer, like an outer layer. In the case of plants, how epidermis covers the entire surface of the plants, in the same way in animal tissues, epithelial tissue, it covers the surfaces of both external as well as internal organs. So it is the covering or protective tissue. It is covering or protective tissue. It covers most of the organs and internal cavities or cavities within the body. Cavities within the body. Epithelial tissue forms barrier to keep different body systems separate. It forms barrier to keep different body systems separate. Cells of epithelial tissue are tightly packed and form a continuous sheet The epithelial tissue cells have very less cementing substance between them, and there are no intercellular spaces between the cells of epithelial tissue. No intercellular spaces between the cells and very less cementing substance between them. Very less cementing substance between them. Between the cells. As epithelial tissue is covering most of the organs from their outside as well as from their inside, every substance that enters or leaves the body must cross at least one layer of epithelial tissue. Every substance that enters or leaves the body must cross at least one layer of epithelial tissue. One layer of epithelial tissue. So, permeability of epithelial tissue cells. Permeability of epithelial tissue cells. Plays a key role in regulating the exchange of materials between body and environment, and between different parts of the body. Different parts of the body itself. That way, the permeability of epithelial tissue cells is playing a key role. And every epithelium is separated from its underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement membrane. Every epithelium is separated from its underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement membrane. Every epithelium is separated from its underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement membrane. For example, this is a tissue. This is epithelium. So this is tissue, This is epithelium. So this tissue is covered by this epithelium. So this epithelium is separated from this underlying tissue by an extracellular basement membrane. By an extracellular basement membrane. So this is the extracellular basement membrane. I'll make it little more clear. So this is the tissue, assume that. This is the epithelium tissue. This is epithelium. Epithelium. It is covering this tissue. So this epithelium is separated from its underlying tissue by an extracellular basement membrane. Extracellular fibrous basement membrane. Extracellular fibrous basement membrane. Fibrous basement membrane. Is that clear? Right? A very epithelium is separated from its underlying tissue by an extracellular fibrous basement membrane. There are three types of epithelial tissue. There are three types of epithelial tissue. They are squamous epithelial tissue, squamous epithelial tissue. Next, columnar epithelial tissue, columnar epithelial tissue, and 3, cuboidal epithelial tissue. Cuboidal epithelial tissue. 3 types of epithelial tissue: squamous, columnar, cuboidal. Squamous epithelial tissue again is divided into simple squamous and stratified squamous. Columnar epithelial tissue is divided into simple columnar and ciliated columnar. Cuboidal epithelial tissue is divided into simple cuboidal and glandular cuboidal. Okay. What is this squamous? What is this columnar? What is this cuboidal? Let us go one by one. First, let us go with squamous epithelial tissue. Squamous. The cells of squamous epithelial tissue. The cells of squamous epithelial tissue are of flat type. Flat cells. Flat cells. Remember, squamous epithelial tissue has flat cells. Coming to simple squamous epithelial tissue. I already told you, simple and stratified. Simple squamous. Okay. And stratified squamous. Stratified squamous. Stratified squamous. no layers, no many layers. Strata means layers. Stratum means layer. Strata means layers. So many layers of flat cells are present. Where do we find the simple squamous epithelium tissue? The epithelium that lines the blood vessels or that lines the alveoli that lines the mouth and esophagus. These are the places that the simple squamous epithelium tissue is present. So, lining of blood vessels and alveoli. Lining of blood vessels and alveoli. Here, the blood vessels, that is blood capillaries and alveoli. Alveoli are balloon-like structures present in lungs. In between alveoli and their surrounding blood capillaries, exchange of materials occurs, that is especially gases, respiratory gases occurs. So transportation occurs through a selectively permeable surface of this epithelial tissue. Right? Transportation of materials occurs through a selectively permeable surface. Through a selectively permeable surface. Of this epithelial tissue. The lining of mouth and esophagus also. Lining of mouth and esophagus also. Lining of mouth and esophagus also is having simple squamous epithelial tissue. The cells of this simple squamous epithelial tissue are very thin, flat, and they form a delicate lining. Their cells are very thin, flat, and form a delicate lining. Right. Coming to stratified. As I already said, this stratified squamous epithelial tissue, it is arranged in many layers. It is arranged in many layers to prevent wear and tear. To prevent wear and tear. Wear and tear. Example, skin. Okay. Next, columnar epithelial tissue. Columnar epithelial tissue. It is, column means like pillar. Pillar like epithelial cells are present. Columnar epithelial tissue. Pillar like cells are present. Pillar like cells are present. That's why this tissue is known as columnar epithelial tissue. Simple columnar and ciliated columnar. Two types are there, as I already said. Simple columnar epithelial tissue. It is present in the inner lining of small intestine and large intestine. So simply we can say inner lining of intestine. It facilitates the movement across the epithelial barrier, and this helps in absorption and secretion. So simple columnar epithelial tissue. Simple columnar epithelial tissue. The inner lining of intestine. Inner lining of intestine. Inner lining of intestine. So both small and large intestines. It facilitates the movement across epithelial barrier. Facilitates the movement across to movement of substances. Movement of substances across it, so that absorption and secretion occurs. Absorption and secretion. Absorption of what? Final digested end product. Secretion of what? Small intestine secrete digestive juice. So secretion of digestive juices, absorption of digested end products occurs. Secretion, absorption, secretion occurs. Right? Coming to ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. Ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. Same pillar-like cells only are present, but these pillar-like cells have hair-like structures attached to their surface. These hair-like structures are called cilia. As cilia are present attached to the surface of these cells, this epithelial tissue is known as ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. Many hair-like cilia are present on the surface of the cells. On the surface of the cells. right? These cilia can move, and because of their movement, the mucus can be pushed forward and it can be cleared. The respiratory tract contains the ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. The cilia can move. Cilia can move. Their movement pushes, the ciliary movement pushes the mucus forward to clear it. Ciliary movement pushes the mucus forward to clear it. So, where this ciliated columnar epithelial tissue is present? In respiratory tract. Simple columnar epithelial tissue is present in intestine, whereas ciliated columnar epithelial tissue is present in respiratory tract. Next, cuboidal. Epithelial tissue. Simple cuboidal and glandular cuboidal. In columnar epithelial tissue, the cells are pillar-like. In cuboidal epithelial tissue, the cells are cube-like. Cells are cube-like. Cells are cube-like. Right? Simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. Cube has got more stability. The structured cube has got more stability. So, this cuboidal epithelial tissue is present on the structures where more stability is required. Simple cuboidal epithelial tissue is present in the lining of kidney tubules and ducts of salivary glands. It provides the mechanical support. It provides the mechanical support. Simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. Simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. The lining of kidney tubules and ducts of salivary glands. It is present in the lining of kidney tubules and the ducts of salivary glands. Ducts means small tubes only. Ducts of salivary glands. In human mouth, 3 pairs of salivary glands are present. They provide mechanical support. Glandular cuboidal epithelial tissue. Glandular epithelial tissue. In certain glands like pancreas, a portion of epithelial tissue folds inward and forms a multicellular gland. In certain glands, a portion of epithelial tissue, cuboidal epithelial tissue, folds inward and a multicellular gland is formed. Multicellular gland is formed. So only it is known as glandular epithelial tissue. Here the epithelial tissue cells are functioning as gland cells that secrete substances at the surface of their epithelial tissue. So here epithelial tissue cells are working as gland cells and secrete their secretions. So with this, the three types of epithelial tissue are completed. In the next class, we will discuss connective tissue. Thank you.